They're early. Alison, I can see their car.
What is he talking about?
Our first guests, down at the gatehouse.
The gatehouse?
So exciting.
Do you want to go or shall I?
But who are they? Is there a vetting process?
Should we go together?
Sure, yeah.
Or is that creepy? You go. Good luck.
Okay, all right, won't be long.
What are their connections? What is the circumstance? Or are you just inviting people in willy-nilly?
I quite agree, Fanny.
They're just coming for their holidays.
They what?
I mean, I can show you their booking if you really want. I'm sure they're a lovely couple. It's their anniversary.
Oh.
Hello. Dirty weekend.
Don't even think about it.
What?
They're the first ones to leave a review, okay? It has to go well. Just leave them alone.
All right. Fun police.
What is she thinking?
Honestly.
Hello and welcome to Haunting Button House, a BBC Ghost podcast. I am Luke and I am joined by a very hot Tash today.
That sounds a bit weird.
Well, I mean, in temperature, but, we're both...
Are you not hot then? Even though it's like 27
absolutely
degrees?
sweltering, yeah. How are you, Tash?
Hot. Very sweaty.
Yeah, it's... it's... when British people complain about the weather, it sounds like they're like, it's 26, it's not that hot. But it's terrible in the UK.
I think we're just not equipped for it.
No.
Mentally, physically,
logistically.
But it's one of them.
So yeah, if if at any point we go, it's because our brains just stop working for a second.
Melted.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a hot minute since we've been here.
Oh, that's a good transition.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I came up with that on the fly as
well.
well.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know if it was on your notes.
No. Absolutely wasn't. Yeah, so, yeah.
What have you been up to, then?
What haven't I been up to?
Yeah.
Well, we've been on holiday. That's the biggie.
We have, yeah.
We've been on a cruise.
We have, yeah.
We've been to Spain. We've been to Portugal. And we can say we've seen Guernsey
from a distance. It looked nice.
It looked nice,
yeah.
but we didn't want to get off the boat.
Do you know what? I was saying this to my brother yesterday. I don't think it was a fact of not wanting to. It was, there's not really much point if you've not booked stuff already.
To do.
Because by the time you'll get off, you'll have maybe an hour max to walk around before you then have to just get back again.
Yeah, so to get to Guernsey, the ship has to stop just outside Guernsey, and you have to get on step off the ship and get on a smaller boat, a tender boat, over to Guernsey. And obviously, there's like 3,000 people on the ship, and probably about 2,500 of those want to get off the ship.
And there's probably about
Guernsey,
8 boats, was there, or something like that?
Yeah, there wasn't many, and obviously they go back and forth, and they do. Shelley. They do what they can to get everyone there, but yeah, it just didn't kind of seem worth it for us. But we did go to Spain and Portugal.
We did, yeah.
And we've never been on a cruise before, so that was new.
Interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite scary to be on a ship in the middle of the ocean at night.
Yeah,
because you just literally cannot see anything.
It's absolute pitch black. Obviously, on the ship you're fine. It's completely well lit on the ship.
Yeah,
but as soon as
it's like a shopping centre,
basically,
like a boat, basically, with a hotel rooms.
Pretty much. But as soon as you look overboard, that's it. It's just pitch black. Like you cannot see anything. Even the water, you can just hear it.
Yeah, I couldn't look out at night because it just freaked me out.
I found it cool. I was like, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Hope we don't sink, but
yeah. So that's probably the most exciting thing that we've done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, just the usual work.
I mean, that was the main reason we were taking a break. It was because we were doing that, and we just thought that it's just silly to try and come back, do a week, go off for 2 weeks, and then come back for a week. So,
but what have you all been up to for the last 3 weeks?
Well, exactly. What have they all been up to? Do you mean me or the listeners?
Like the listeners. I know what you've been up to. Yeah, I'd be interested to know if you've been on holiday or. Sorry, our cat's just sat right by the mic. I'll take a picture and then I'll show you all. Yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much what we've done.
Any feedback or anything?
Oh,
that we
yeah,
can-
sorry.
That's what I thought you. I thought that's a good transition. When you were saying, "What have you all been up to?" I was like, "Oh, that's a good transition."
We did have some feedback. I think at the end of the last series, I just got in a mess with the feedback. I couldn't remember what I'd already said, and I missed some, and it just all went.
You keep trying to keep it clean. It went to.
Anyway, so I think I missed a little bit of Caroline's feedback. So it had some of her feedback that I remember reading, but not all of it. So Caroline gave us her episode order worst to best, which pretty much goes 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So that was pretty easy. And then Caroline also said, I'm not a massive fan of the Christmas episodes. I remember I outraged you last series by putting the Christmas episode last. I enjoy them well enough on Christmas Day as a bit of post-festivity entertainment. But watching them at any other times, they aren't my favourites. Apart from the next series one, but that's jumping ahead. So, got a few episodes to go, but we'll get there.
Is that the final episode?
No, because we're only on series 4.
Oh, okay, the next. So this
I'm
series.
guessing because it would have been at the end of the last series. So
Genuinely can't remember what this one was.
No.
So
it's a Christmas one now.
yeah.
Because we've only had 2 Christmas episodes so far, haven't we? Because the first series didn't have a Christmas
First series
episode.
didn't have one, so there was one for the second series, third, and then there should be one for the fourth. So
Yeah. And then we had some feedback on the last episode. Doc in Docs, I don't know who that is, but it doesn't give me a name, but they said season 3 was the first to be affected by COVID restrictions. Series 2 wrapped just before COVID, and I think we've discussed that kind of through the whole series, haven't we? Which limited the use of the plague ghosts in a cramped area of the cellar. You only see a couple of plaguers looking at the painting of Thomas. We get more of them in season 4 up in the main house, which I never even considered that to be a reason why the plague ghosts weren't like sort of seen that much. But it makes complete sense, doesn't it?
it makes sense logistically, and also I wonder if it might have been a little in bad taste if they had a load of dead people who died of a disease like while COVID was like going
definitely
around.
never even considered that aspect of it either, really. So that's an interesting sort of look on it. And then Jan says that love listening to your insights on the episode. Agree with Tash as we always talk about whether Santa has been rather than exclaim he came. So that's kind of something I said last episode. And Jan also said, enjoy your well-deserved holiday and look forward to your return. Well, we're here, Jan,
back,
and
we're
we're
back.
ready to go. So I think that leads us well into the episode.
So speaking of holidays, this episode is called Happy Holiday. It's directed by Simon Hind, or Hind, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, and I don't want to presume.
How's it spelled?
Hynd.
I'd say Hind.
Hind, that's what I would assume. New director. And it looks like, I mean, judging from all the other series, is that they have one director for a series.
Okay.
So like this Simon directs all of the episodes for this series, and then the series before it was somebody else. So yeah, not individual episode directors, I suppose. The episode was written by Matthew Bainton and Jim Howick, and the original air date was the 23rd of September 2022.
Does that feel like not that long ago?
No, 2 years. That is apparently
Less than 2 years, really.
Yeah. Well, no, over because September. No, less. I don't know how time works.
Yeah, we haven't we haven't got to September this year yet, so just short.
Just short of 2 years. Yeah.
God, help.
So we start in a quiet button house, and we see Thomas walk in the halls, and we hear these creepy whispers. following him.
I thought the house looked a bit worse for wear when it first panned to it because it was so overgrown, like where that fountain is.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I know it is normally, but I just thought I couldn't obviously I couldn't remember what happened in the episode because it's been a long time since I watched it. But yeah, I just was like, oh, it looks a bit like run down. What's happened? But
maybe that's what they were trying to set up. But I will also put it to them that we have one fairly moderately sized garden, and that sometimes we're like, oh god, the grass is growing, this, that, and the other. Imagine having an entire stately house and there's only 2 people looking after it. You'd be like, yeah, it'd just be overgrown everywhere. Then you'd have to get one of them little robot mowers, I think.
yes,
But, yeah.
or sit on lawnmower.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, as he's walking around, he hears whispers behind him, and we see that someone's following him. As he goes into one of the upstairs rooms, he sees some of the plague ghosts are sort of in there, just muttering to themselves, and then they're surprised when they see him, and he speaks to them, and he's a bit confused as to what's going on. Obviously, we have an idea of what this is because we saw the foreshadowing of it from the end of the last series with the painting. But obviously, it's whether you remember that from a year removed, I suppose. But we do get the reminder of it later. Elsewhere, we see Alison and Mike, who are really excited that their first guests are arriving at the gatehouse. So elsewhere in the house, Alison and Mike are excited for the first guests to arrive at the gatehouse. All the ghosts are waiting for them. And Fanny sort of suggests, is there a vetting process for these guests? Mike goes to greet them, as they both decide both going at the same time might be a bit creepy. And Alison, before she leaves, warns the ghosts, but mainly Julian, to leave them alone, basically, to enjoy their weekend.
I think he thinks that they're on a dirty weekend, doesn't he?
Yeah. I don't know if they explained in the last series that they were setting up... Oh, yeah, they did, didn't they? Because they were advertising all the time for the... Yeah. But yeah, no, they've set it up as like a B&B, basically.
We don't ever really find out why the people are there.
No.
I guess they just booked a weekend.
Yeah. I think that, to be honest, not going into my final thoughts on the episode, I think that kind of makes the episode weaker.
Yeah, I get that. I think because you're expecting like a big reason as to why they're there, or like
ultimately nothing
he
happens.
wants to go on a bike ride and she wants to sit on her phone.
But yeah, I mean, maybe there's more to it than that, but yeah, it doesn't seem like it. So, the rest of the the rest of the ghosts are watching the TV, and Robin is watching this program about a caveman's skull that they found, and when they sort of do the reconstruction of his face, Robin recognises him and says he knows that person. And we're sort of left with that sort of before we go into the intro. So, when we come back, the ghosts all don't believe Robin, that he knows this person. It's, it could be anybody really.
I mean, it could be.
Yeah, Julian stops to as far as saying that all cavemen look the same, which
we won't go into.
We won't go into that, but yeah. And Robin says that he met him a while ago, and because nobody's believing him, he just storms off in a huff. Pat says it is exciting when you meet somebody famous. He mentions that he met Bobby Davro, and he lent him talc. The only memory I've got of Bobby Davro is, have you ever seen that video where he's in the stocks and they pull his trousers down and then the stocks break and he falls on his face?
Yeah, that's awful, isn't it?
I mean,
was he in the soap, Bobby Davro?
I'm not sure.
Was he in
Can't remember.
EastEnders?
Possibly. Yeah, he did something like that, yeah.
It's going to be a live Google now.
Yeah,
I'm
I don't know
sure
what
he was in a soap, or maybe it was Coronation Street.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not too sure.
Do our overseas listeners know about soaps?
I think, yeah, I mean, there's definitely soaps in other countries, but they probably don't have sort of EastEnders.
Okay, I would recommend EastEnders as You know what? I'm obsessed. Sorry, I'm doing a live
Live Bobby Davro check.
Live Bobby Davro check. I'm sure he was in a. He was. He was in
he in
EastEnders.
EastEnders?
Yeah.
Okay.
For only 1 year, but I
Okay.
still remember.
That's a year to remember, apparently. Yeah, that's all I ever remember him. But mainly because Limmy just keeps playing that clip every now and again to just go over it. But all of the ghosts go through who they've met, who's famous. So the captain mentions that he met Field Marshal Harold Alexander. Thomas mentions that he met Byron and just says tosspot, basically. So yeah. Fanny drops a bombshell that she met the Elephant Man, John Merrick. And when Alison, genuinely excited about that, says, "Oh, what was he like?" She said, "Oh, he's quite boring." So
I didn't realise he was that. Like when.
like early 1900s, I'd say.
Oh really?
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought it was like
Victorian, like.
more recent.
Oh really? No,
Yeah,
no.
for some reason, I don't know why.
They made a film out of it.
Maybe
but-
that's what
but
I'm
yeah.
thinking of. Yeah.
And Julian says that he met the Queen.
To be fair.
And he even says who beat that, to which Humphrey, with his only scene of the episode, absolutely batters him by saying, "Oh, I met Henry VIII." And it's like,
Yeah, we literally don't see Humphrey again.
That's it. Until I was going through the IMDb stuff, and I saw a picture of Humphrey, and I was like, "Oh, we literally only saw him once in this episode." Now, obviously, they've all gone through their famous meetings and encounters. Have you met anyone famous, Tash?
Well, I don't want to brag, but very recently I met the one and only Fox on the Box, Basil Brush.
We did. You came a bit of a Basil Brush stalker by the end of.
Yes. I mean, I didn't know I was a Basil Brush fan until I set foot on that ship. And knew that I was sharing it with Basil. Yeah. I mean, what more can you say? He's
to be fair,
a national treasure.
I think of all of the comedy acts on the ship, he was the funniest.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And there was an actual comedian on the
There
ship
was
as
two
well.
actual comedians.
Yeah, we didn't see one in fairness to him, so you know.
Yeah. So I mean, I can't think of anyone else famous that I've met.
We've had like encounters where you've walked past people.
I've met one half of McFly, or like half of McFly. So
True.
two of them.
Yeah.
And that was quite a big thing for me because I was quite a McFly fan in my teens, early teens. So yeah, they're quite famous.
I'd say they're pretty big. Yeah, I don't know outside of the UK if they are, but
I don't know.
You'd be hard pressed in the UK to find somebody who doesn't know who McFly are.
Yeah. But otherwise, I can't think. I think Basil Brush is up there. He has to be. If you don't know who Basil Brush is, he is a children's entertainer.
Yeah.
And he is a fox. So
puppet.
he is a fox.
Just for anyone out there who's like, wow, they've got an actual fox. Just like, yeah.
And when I was younger, I'm going to say like 16, 17, 18 years ago, he was quite big on. Well, he's been going since the 70s, I think.
Yeah, he made like a resurgence, didn't he? In like the 2000s,
in the 2000s. And he was on CBBC, which is children's BBC. And that was it. So who have you met anyway that's famous?
Genuinely, I wrote this question out and I was like, I hope you don't ask me because I cannot for the life of me think of anybody famous I've ever met.
No.
I'm trying to think of like, have I like been on the same like bill as like a slightly famous like band, but I don't even think that's the case. Like not even that.
No. I've met bands.
But
that I would say are famous, but not more so in the genre of music that I like.
Yeah.
They're famous, less so than famous worldwide.
I feel like it has to be like an encounter where you didn't set it up, you know what I mean? Like, so obviously if you meet a band after a show, you've gone to see the band or something like that. But yeah, I can't think. I don't know. I think it'd probably be the same case where I've walked past somebody and then somebody said, "Oh, that's it," and I've just not remembered.
Joe Lycett walked past us in the train station.
Yeah, that was the closest.
I was pretty gutted about that because I didn't even see him.
But that's it, yeah. I mean, this is definitely one that people can get involved with. Let us know who's the most famous person you've bumped into.
I absolutely want to know this.
Yeah.
To see what boring lives we've led, really, that we haven't encountered anyone famous. But maybe not as famous as Henry VIII.
Yeah. That does take some topping.
Or Bobby Davro.
Mike comes back after sort of greeting the guests. We don't actually see that interaction, but he kind of feeds it back to Alison. Alison's really nervous and really wants their guests, who are their first guests, to enjoy their stay there. And all we find out from Mike is they just want some extra pillows, which Fanny says, who do they think they are? Obviously not happy that Alison and Mike are basically the staff now, and they're not the masters of the house.
She can't quite comprehend that, can she? That the lady of the house is waiting on people that are staying in the servants' quarter.
Is the concept of like a B&B a thing back then? Like, surely it is.
I don't think so, because I think if you were wealthy enough to travel, you'd probably know people who you could stay with.
Yeah, true.
And if you were wealthy enough, you'd probably take your own servants with you. I know on like Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
Like,
they go
they
along
kind
with
of
them, yeah.
they go with their like I was going to say lady in waiting, that's the queen, but they're sort of like the people that dress them and stuff like go with them when they go places. So I guess they would. That's going off on the right tangent, isn't it, actually?
Well,
but you know,
it's good to know anyway. Which we get another bit of information that Mary doesn't really understand what a holiday is, and Pat sort of is flabbergasted that this is the case, and we see more of their sort of adventures later on. Alison goes down into the basement with Kitty, as that's where they keep all of their towels and whatnot, and Kitty keeps saying that she really wants to meet the guests, and Alison again is adamant that just leave them alone, like we want this to go well. And when they go down into the basement, the plague ghosts are talking about someone talking to them, and they're all like sort of starstruck. And we find out that they're all referencing Thomas, and they've started to basically worship him. And this is because obviously Alison painted his picture and then put it down in the basement in the last episode. And they've sort of started idol worshipping him, I guess.
I guess that's all they have to look at.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if it is, and I might be reading this too much into this. This story, for me, felt like it was kind of a commentary on influencers, because like they follow this person just by basically literally it's like Instagram, they just like his picture and think that the sun shines out of
really
it.
Interesting concept.
And then, like, obviously they meet him, and we'll get to all that bit. But yeah, I couldn't shake the feeling that that's what it was sort of laughing at. Obviously, told through like people who have no concept of what Instagram and influencing and stuff like that is. Yeah,
I thought you were going to say it was a way to kind of like shoehorn the plague ghosts back into the house.
I mean, it might be as well, but
because it did it. Don't get me wrong, like it's funny. I did enjoy that. Like especially Kitty and how she kind of like takes on the role as like the manager or the PA or something, and the way her voice completely changes as well.
It's crazy that she just completely flips into that role. Yeah,
she's kind of like, well, I can actually. He's actually one of my best friends. I can get you to meet him if you want to.
Yeah.
Like it just is just really weird, and now you say about that sort of the role of the influencer that we have like nowadays.
I mean,
she definitely sort of helps that story.
I don't know if it is the case, but I couldn't later on when it was they were doing stuff. It'll come. We'll come to that anyway. But so yeah. So
I just want to say on that bit actually, when Kitty was downstairs talking to the plague ghosts, obviously the ghosts play the plague ghosts, I thought it was really funny the scene when like Kitty is watching herself cry.
I had
and
no
she's
idea.
just like, what?
I had no idea what to call the plague ghost, so I just called it Plague Ghost Kitty. 'Cause I'm like, what else do you say?
I suppose it's just like Lolly playing
a plague ghost.
ghost, but
Did they
Lolly
have-
being Kitty watching Lolly playing the plague ghost.
They must have individual names, but I have no idea what they are.
I bet it's in the book.
Probably, yeah.
I bet it's in the book.
Yeah.
It's got to be somewhere. They're too smart to not have names for all these plague ghosts. It's kind of something that it seems like the...
I think the guy who brought the furs back definitely has a name, because I think they call him a name, but I cannot for the life of me remember it. But that's the only one.
Yeah.
I think it's like John or something like that. Some like normal sounding name like that. You know what I mean?
I
but
kind of want to... Yeah.
Well, I cannot for the life
No,
of
I
me.
can't remember either.
So we find out they're talking about Thomas, and they want to get to know him. And they said that he's probably really I can't remember the words they used to describe him, but he's like attentive and caring, and he'd probably be really good if it'd be really nice if you get to know him. And Alison sort of says, "Yeah, be careful what you wish for," and they're not happy about mocking him. Has he got a name?
Yes, I've just googled it. I know it's terrible. I just need to know.
Yeah.
So, Lolly Adefope is Agnes.
Right.
Matthew Bainton, who is the one who brings back the fur, that's Mick.
Mick. That's it. Yeah. Now you say it. Yeah.
Simon Farnaby is Jeff. Martha Howe Douglas is Maud. Jim Howick is John. Lawrence Rickard is Nigel. Ben Wilbond is Walter. And then it just says Katie Wicks and then doesn't have a name next to her.
Okay.
No, I'm going to find it. It's got to be there. No, it doesn't have one.
Yeah, maybe they never got around to naming her character. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah. And we won't spoil why that might be later on. Kitty says that she could actually introduce them, and Alison sort of cottons on to how funny this would be straight away. And she's like, "Yeah, you really should." And then, as you mentioned, Kitty's plague ghost, or Agnes, as we find out, is Agnes, was it?
Yeah.
Is very emotional at this. Robin runs back into the room that he stormed out of earlier. A lot of the ghosts are gone now, but the captain and Thomas are still there. And he remembers his friend's name. He says he was called Hat. And notes, obviously, this was before hats were invented, so it wasn't as weird. And he says that he traded with him. He says that he gave him a stone tied to a stick for some of the furs that he's wearing now. And he called him really naive that he would swap them. Because it wasn't anything, it was just a bit of tat he gave him, and sort of laughs about it as he leaves. The plague ghosts are all enter now, led in by Kitty, who calls Thomas Toms, as again this switch straight away,
Like really familiar, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very un-Kitty like, I find. But Thomas is completely flattered by all this adjuration. And they say, can they ask him some questions? And they ask him some really hard-hitting questions, like, what's his favourite animal, which is a wild tiger? What's his favourite colour, which he says is burgundy big time. And they ask for a picture with him. So Alison goes to take a photo. Obviously, they're ghosts, so they can't take a picture. And they sort of say, we meant to paint him. Can you do one right now? And they're like, she just refuses this.
He calls her a cow.
Which one? One of the plague ghosts?
I've forgotten the names already,
yeah.
but Simon Farnaby.
Yeah.
He says cow, and I'm like, it's very uncalled for. Like,
especially when you'd argue that the plague ghosts have got less familiarity with Alison than the rest of the ghosts have. But
I'd just put like stick people, like just
just drawn on them quick. Yeah, there you go. The captain thinks this is completely absurd, that they're all sort of fawning over Thomas. Elsewhere, we see Julian stalking on the newlyweds, so obviously completely breaking his promise. Pretty Julian-like, to be fair, though, to go back on the road.
Newlyweds?
They mentioned their newly. Oh no, it's
No,
their
it's
anniversary.
anniversary,
Yeah. So Julian sneaks up on him, and he's annoyed that they aren't doing anything mucky. Basically, they're actually doing something pretty normal. She's on her phone, and he's blowing up a bike tire. Fanny is also there, being nosy.
I love it when he turns the corner and she's just like, oh, hello.
Yeah. The funny thing is,
She's so, like, I mean, she, I don't know, she's a bit mucky, isn't she? Like, she's always sort of like she's a bit of a prude, but then she's also, like, sneakily reading, like, Lady Chatterley's Lover and, like, the stuff with Humphrey's body.
yeah,
Like, she's...
I think it's that thing of the time though, and it like you have to be prim and proper, but people probably
but
weren't,
really she's
behind closed doors.
Yeah. But I like it when she gets caught out because I think that's quite funny, like how she sort of like because she tries to like double down, doesn't she?
Tries to pretend
that she's not actually interested.
Obviously not. She's just actually caught Julian in the act. And they both see Alison bring the pillows that I mentioned earlier, and Fanny's really not happy about this. Alison speaks to Mike and says that when she goes back into the house, she says that she's not getting a good vibe from them, and thinks they're not going to leave a good review because they've not had a good time. And they sort of discuss this, but Mike kind of puts it that there's not a lot they can do other than be hosts. He can't really go and check if they're depressed deviously. That's not really a good idea. So they kind of are just sort of left to the fate, really. We then see Pat and Mary, and they are looking at the globe, and Pat is showing Mary where he went on holiday.
There. You see? Tossa de Mar. Paradise.
But that's across the seas. You must have journeyed for days and days.
Oh, no, because we flew there on an aeroplane.
Oh.
Yes. Now, to get the most out of your holiday, you need to get an early flight. So we'd get Daly up about 3 a.m.
3 a.m. before the birds.
Yeah. Get him in the Datsun. 10 pence piece for the toll, blue ribboned in the glove box, status quo in the tape deck, and you're on the motorway. Now, you need to get to the airport at least 4 hours before your flight so you can check in your bags and go through passport control. Passport?
Passport, yeah.
Yeah, it's an official document given to you by the government. It offers you protection as a British citizen should you get into any trouble.
Troubles?
Yeah, like, if you lose your luggage, say, or find yourself in the middle of a military coup and need to be evacuated.
Oh.
But that only happened once. Now, duty-free. We're talking gin, Toblerones, fags if you smoke them.
I like it, Pat giving his rundown of the airport journey is the most dad energy you could have in this. The 3 a.m. start, status quo on the tape deck. What else did he say? A blue ribbon in the glove box. It's like a little chocolate.
Yeah,
a little chocolate. Chocolate.
I never know how you say that chocolate.
Riband.
I always thought riband, but I don't think it is.
I always thought it was a blue ribbon, but it's
got
got
ribbon.
it's got
It's
a
got
D
a D
on
on
the
the
end.
end.
Maybe the D's
Silent
silent
D.
the worst kind of D. They quickly. He quickly moves past the part though where he mentions that he got stuck in a military coup on this holiday, and starts talking about duty free. Now, American viewers, Pat mints cigarettes when he's talking about this.
He just sort of clarifies saying if you smoke them.
Yeah. I get the feeling that's for international distribution. Elsewhere, we see Robin run back in again, and he's had another memory of this friend, his friend Hat. He mentioned that they had an X tattoo on their back, and Thomas makes a joke about X marking the spot, and he says about treasure being in his bum, and his newfound fans all find this hilarious. Although it gets a bit tiresome later on when he goes to tell another joke, and they all kind of hype it up for him, and he sort of bottles it. They all kind of let into the fact that they think that Thomas is famous. Obviously, if he's got a picture painted of him, he must be famous. And the captain says that he says that they shouldn't worship him. They should worship real heroes like Monty or Churchill or Lord Brigadier Sir Anthony Bartholomew Raisenby Jones. Who's not a real person. Really disappointed. I was like, he must be like a real person that they found. No, not a real
just
person.
made up the name.
Yeah, I was like, I mean, it's a good name to make up. I was like, I'm gonna have to take that down in full and not balls it up. But Thomas leaves at this, and all the plague ghosts sort of follow him. And Kitty kind of acts like, as you said, as his manager and sort of his bouncer at this point until he gets some proper muscle.
I feel like she's
on.
channeling Fanny a little bit as well.
Yeah, it's weird how much she just switches into that. She feels like a brand manager or something like that. You know what I mean?
How would she even know what a brand manager?
I know, yeah.
How does she know how she should act?
Yeah,
It's really bizarre.
It's
She's been
strange.
watching too much TV.
That's probably where she got it from. Yeah. Thomas bumps into Alison as he's sort of escaping from his fans, and he says, "Oh, you've got no idea what it's like to be followed, objectified, and harassed." To which he says, "Yeah, it's annoying, isn't it?" Julian and Fanny are watching, a bit bored, as this couple seem to be having an uninteresting holiday, where she's on her phone as he's sort of wandering around doing things, which, I mean, depends what you want to do on your holiday. There's nothing like a good relax. That's all I could say.
I think if that's what you want to do in your spare time,
That is true, yeah.
and crack on.
Yeah, exactly. The next day, Alison serves the guests breakfast, as Pat is sort of explaining what a holiday breakfast is all about.
Oh, Mary. Holiday breakfasts. Heaven on earth. Where you can have cereals and a cooked breakfast and pastries. You have to make sure you time it right because they leave the cooked bits in the serving trays. So you've got to go up when a fresh batch of scrambled eggs go in. Then you've got to pounce. Otherwise, you load your plate up with sausages and beans and so on, only to find you stuck with the cold monkey scraps at the bottom of the tray.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Anyway, after breakfast, it's off to the beach. Weather permitting.
I mean, I've got to say, Pat's pretty bang on with this. The holiday breakfast is pretty good because, as we found out, you can have cooked breakfast, then pastries, cereal if you want it as well, all in one sitting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's brilliant.
You just can't get that at home.
No.
Like, you would just never do that kind of breakfast
It's
at
far
home.
too decadent, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but when you're on holiday, it just all goes out the window, doesn't it?
Did it every day practically until I got bored of it towards the end. I was like, I'm sick of
I didn't. I'm not a breakfast person.
Yeah, no.
I think I had it like 3 times.
Yeah, I think so. And then I was just trundling off
I
and
was like, nah.
filling my boots with sausages. Not literally. Mike watches on. The two guests a bit worried because they're not talking to one another. He's reading the news, I think, and she's on the phone again. Julian and Fanny are commenting on the two guests and their activities. Julian obviously is advocating that that she's in the wrong. Fanny is advocating that he's in the wrong, which very much feels like an echo of their own marriages. Alison spots a cycle map as she's sort of tidying up and reports this back to Mike, and we see them hatching a plan a bit later. We see that the plague ghosts have basically camped out on the stairs waiting for Thomas to wake up. And Thomas asks Kitty if she can sort of manage this situation, and she gets him to form a queue. And then when they start getting a bit rowdy, she even calls in Robin as a bit of security, who quickly just takes on the role. Like, don't even ask why, just does it. In this sort of, I want to say dressing room, but sort of the room where he's sort of waiting out all of this. The captain tells Thomas that this is all hollow. They only like him because of his picture. And this is where it popped into my head. I was like, is this about influencers? You know what I mean? And Thomas tells him he's just jealous. Well, he tells him not to be jealous because, it's not as good as it seems. And the captain comes back and says they don't like anything you do. They don't like your poems, to which Thomas gets angry and said that he's going to have his recital in the ballroom and he'll show him. I like how when this happens, he sort of stamps towards the captain, who immediately gets ready to smack him with his cane. Always ready for a fight, the captain. But that's a military man, I suppose. Alison suggests that their plan is that Mike should pop the bike tyres of this guy to force them together, basically.
I literally just don't know where she gets this idea from.
This is one of those situations where you're doing more harm by meddling. You know what I mean? Like, if you just leave them alone, you'd probably be okay. I mean, literally, you find it like that in the case.
Yeah, it's just really bizarre. I mean, whatever, but I just... What was she thinking?
She's overthinking the situation, I think that's the problem.
And who would do that?
Exactly. So we go back to Pat and Mary, who's Pat is giving Mary some more holiday tips.
I forgot to mention, you've got to get up early to put your towels on the sunbeds before you go to breakfast, yes. Now, I like to go for a dip first before I put my sun cream on. Otherwise, you just wash it off. And believe me, you don't want to have sunburn. Oh, Daly got it so bad once, we had to cover his whole body in bicarbonate of soda. And that were on first day, so we had to keep him in shade until we went home. And then, a week later, he shed his skin like a snake. And there was the holiday where we all got food poisoning from the dodgy beach melons, or the one where someone pinched me wallet and the police accused me of lying. And come to think of it, Mary, holidays are a bloody nightmare. Keep clear. Nothing but stress. Sorry.
Still, sound like an adventure to me. I never did leave my town of birth, so...
Well, not once?
No, never, no. No, with a life of tolling the land for us. You know, outside all the day, planting, harvesting, fetching water from the well and logs for the fire. Teaching the children how to weave baskets, 5 potatoes high. Feeding the livestock and picking fruit. Oh, and pressing apples for the cider. Sometimes would my husband go to the lake to fish, and then I would join him and prepare a fire to cook the catch, and then would we huddle under a blanket and eat as the sun sank beyond the trees and the birds sang for their bedtimes.
Well, Mary, one day of your life sounds like my perfect holiday. 5 stars.
Yeah, I suppose it was all right. Up to a point.
So yeah, after all this, he decides that holidays are a bit of a nightmare, which at this point I thought, Tash is Pat, I think, at this point.
I just find them very stressful to organise.
Yeah.
Thing is, I'm very much a pack everything just in case.
Just in case.
Like, I think I had about 13 different types of plasters, various bandages, gloves.
But if we did cut our
Savlon.
finger, you know, be prepared.
Exactly. Safety pins. Everything you could think of. The thing is, you laugh, but we went away once with somebody, and I won't mention any names. I know they don't listen to the podcast, so they won't even know I'm telling this story. But their bag broke, and they were like, "Oh no, my bag's broke." And I was like, "Gee, you could really do with some safety pins right now." And their bag is still held together by those said safety pins.
Well, there you go.
So,
I mean, you live
who's
in there.
laughing now?
Well, yeah. I did like this sort of quote from Mary as well. Just it does sound nice, and then obviously it's spoilt. Her life was spoilt at the end by a bit of burning at the stake. But
A bit of witchery.
what can you do?
I wonder what. Maybe this comes up. I literally think that popped in my head. I wonder what Mary did to make them think that she was a witch.
Yeah, I think it does come up. Maybe, I'm not sure. I know there's more explained about Mary later on.
Yeah,
because there's definitely an episode about that.
We'll hold that thought.
Alison goes full on like spy here. She's sneaking up to the bike to sort of pop the tyre. Again, when you sort of say that loud, you go, absolutely crazy idea. Like, we also see Mike pull out the Wi-Fi cable in the gatehouse to obviously stop her getting on her phone. We see the guests not happy as he's sort of annoyed about his tyre, and she's annoyed that she can't get on the internet. But they decide, it's fine, we'll just go for a walk instead. And Mike and Alison think our plan succeeded. Elsewhere, we see the plague ghosts entering the apparently ticketed poetry recital. They didn't realise it's ticketed, but it's all make-believe.
Pretend tickets.
Yeah. And then Thomas gives a poetry recital while the captain watches on.
This first poem is called Misty Glade. Misty Glade. Sounds good. I hear the running water. It rushes to be with the sea, and so it is with me. She stands among the birch and elk. The cobwebs shimmer. Where are the cobwebs?
I don't know, maybe in the branches of the birch and elk.
The dew dresses the forest floor, a crystal carpet, and here, a door that once made...
Door in the woods?
I think it might be a metaphor, like for an opening of some kind.
No real door.
Cease the chatter. Thank you. I'll start again. I hear the running water. It rushes to be with the sea. Life within a verdant spring.
That's not how I read it.
May I finish?
It's going to be long, because I need to go to the toilet.
Is it meant to be more abstract?
I'm sorry, I just don't get it.
You're not supposed to get it, you Philistine wazzock. It's art!
Very quickly, the plague ghosts start to questioning his poems and start pulling it apart. Try to read into it where Thomas is not happy about these sort of interpretations. And at one point, as they're talking over him, he gets annoyed and shouts at the ghosts. And they all decide that, this isn't the person we thought he was. He's actually quite rude. And they get up and all leave. And they kind of say that his poetry doesn't make any sense. So the captain...
The ultimate insult.
Yeah. The captain tries and fails to tell his sort of I told you so in the form of a poem, but doesn't manage to get it across, but he can ultimately say, I was right, so it doesn't matter if I can get the poem out or not. But Kitty comforts Thomas and says that she liked his poems no matter what, especially the one about the egg. So, yeah.
She does like an egg, does Kitty?
Yeah, she likes an egg, yeah. Who doesn't like an egg, you know what I mean?
Well, if it's a cake.
Yeah. Or if you're vegan, I suppose. It's not good. Mike sees the couple return, the kiss, and he concludes, they must have actually enjoyed themselves. And Julian and Fanny pat themselves on the back as a job well done, because they've kind of directed this as well. I just like that it's funny that the two people who have very failed marriages in this can spot the problems a mile away from this couple. Robin comes in again shouting to everyone. And he says that there's something on the TV they need to see. And as they all go to see this, Julian can be seen in the background sneaking away to be pervy on these two people just trying to enjoy their anniversary. We see Robin showing the ghosts this program again with the caveman reconstruction. Now, I don't know if you got the same vibe, but it was... when they were saying they've managed to recreate his vocal cords and his voice and stuff like that, did this remind you of the Egyptian video?
Yeah.
That's all I can think of. If you've never seen it, there's a video where they managed to recreate an Egyptian's vocal cords, and they didn't make a sound on the TV show, but somebody's just edited it so it just goes. It's just funny. It's 16 seconds long. So yeah, have a look for that. But it'll remind you of this. But anyway, yeah. So they managed to recreate this caveman's voice, and Robin sort of laughs to himself and says, he did have a stupid voice, to be honest. And all the things that Robin says basically came true. They found him with this tool that he traded with him. He has a tattoo on his back, and Robin is very pleased with himself as everybody starts to apologise, to say, you were right, we were wrong. But he soon changes his tune when we find out that this man definitely died of hypothermia due to having no furs. They say it would be a lonely and cold and sad death. And Robin starts to say, I don't think I knew him after all.
I think it was a different guy.
And suggests they watch The Wire instead, which again, I just like the idea of a caveman watching The Wire. The next day we see Alison and Mike checking their first review that they get.
Review. Lovely house, pleasant stay, Wi-Fi was patchy, 3 stars.
Oh, for
And then finally, to end the episode, we see the captain walking around after waking up, I guess, and the plague ghost Mick. I'm glad we remember their names now. Is outside, and he's actually taken a shine to Lord Brigadier Sir Anthony Bartholomew Rasenby Jones. So the captain is more than happy to fill him in on the details of all this, and as they walk away into the distance, we do get something at the end that I thought is worth noting. It says, "In loving memory for Kevin Corbishley."
I had a look at who he was.
Yeah, I did the same. So he was a light rigger on the series. And passed away during the production of the series. He's also worked on Call the Midwife as well.
I saw that, and I think the Call the Midwife had
did the same,
in memory of as well. It says he tragically died towards the end of filming on the latest run of episodes. So
yeah, no details, but I mean, it's just
well,
sad.
We don't need to know, do we? But
don't really need to.
So but that was nice that they did that.
Yeah. That's the end of the episode anyway. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think it was a strong episode to come back with. Interesting points. Didn't really sort of learn much about the ghosts, and I think those are the strongest episodes for me. Is when we sort of go into the backstory of the ghosts. I suppose maybe we did a little bit with Robin in a way, I guess. But yeah, it was sort of like a good sort of lead into the series, I think. I've sort of, as we've been going through it, I've been thinking, okay, am I going to give this a 7.5 or an 8? And I think I'm going to go with an 8.
Okay.
I don't think it was like a really strong episode, but I think it was a good episode to start us off. And I really feel now for series 4, and obviously we have very recently watched series 5, like it's hard to, like, it just gets better from here. And I guess 8 might be considered a bit high in what I might have given an 8 for before. But I just think it's a strong episode, and it's a good sort of like hit the ground running, getting on with like sort of the life of the ghost. And it's interesting to see Alison and Mike trying to make money from the house in another way that isn't like events and stuff. So,
yeah.
So yeah, I thought it was a good episode. There wasn't many belly laughs, like kind of there wasn't many funny points, and now I'm kind of talking myself out of that 8 a little bit, as I'm kind of like looking at it as a whole. Maybe it's really tricky to kind of.
I mean, it's all personal preference.
Yeah, definitely. No, I'm gonna retract the 8, and I'm gonna give it a 7.5. I don't think it's a 7. I think it's better than sort of like 70% good. I'm gonna say 75%, and like kind of go. It wasn't funny. Like I didn't get many big laughs out of it, but definitely some sort of bits and a good run into the series 4.
So,
oh my god.
I thought it was a decent reintroduction, but I think a lot of things you've said make it a weak episode for me. Probably right. So I thought it was light on jokes. The main plot and Thomas plot I thought weren't that interesting to me. I really liked Mary and Pat teaming up. I enjoyed that sort of story throughout, but it was quite a small part of the episode, and because of that, I think it's probably my least favourite episode so far.
So far?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was looking through other ones, and I was like, I think I would probably watch some of them more than this. So I gave it a 5.
Oh, fair enough.
I don't think any of them are bad, so I can't really give them anything less than a 5, but this is probably the weakest one there is.
It's so difficult. Like, I've really sort of, obviously hindsight's 2020, like, you know, I kind of wish I'd kept a list of what I rated every episode and had a synopsis of each episode to remind me like what happens in that episode, because I do find the rating is literally how I feel in the moment, because I just find it so difficult to remember what I've rated other things as. So I do have to say, I know like we've like had some sort of feedback on what we should rate the episode's against, and I totally take that on board. But for me, I just have to sort of go, nah, it's a this.
I think
in that moment, because I don't put too much pressure on those sort of ratings.
It's why a lot of like written review sites and stuff like that for certain things, they don't give scores.
Yeah,
they just give a recommended or they don't and stuff
like
that.
Yeah,
just because it's like it's at the end of the day, a score is just a number, but people get like.
And in that sense, though, I would recommend someone watch the episode on its own. I would recommend someone watches the episode.
Yeah.
Because it's entertaining. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
So it's really, I do feel bad about the scores because I never kind of know. I'm like, am I scoring too low? Is that right in comparison to the other things that I've scored at that level? And yeah, I'd kind of work myself up about it really. But I mean, this is like, it's not that deep. But I think I need to go back and look. But I'm going to stick with a 7.5. I did enjoy it. I think I'm going to... I understand why you've given it a 5. But I do think it's kind of better than some of the other episodes that we've had, because I think I enjoy it more because I know the characters better now.
Yeah.
And I think it's the little things like... seeing the plague ghosts a bit more in this episode, seeing that different side to Kitty, sort of the Pat and Mary thing. It's kind of Anyway, I'm waffling now to try and justify myself, but
don't feel too disheartened because IMDb with 400 votes gave it a 7.6.
Okay,
so pretty much.
I tend to be the average of what IMDb is, and I don't look at what IMDb is and. I leave that to you.
Yeah. I think, but IMDb, from what I gather, it's all ranges between 7.2 and a 9 something. Just because of how it skews, that's just how reviewing works with that stuff. But.
And ultimately, I always think with reviews, and it's the same with everything, whether you're looking at a TV show rating or looking for a painter and decorator, people leave reviews if they love it or they hate it. It's a very small set of people that rate everything they watch and rate things down the middle.
You kind of, it's one of those things where you kind of have to ignore the zeros and the tens and look at the context of what's in the middle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Way more philosophical debate about reviewing than we needed to, but there we go.
Ghost Stories with Luke and Tash.
So, we are back with a new segment.
And we're sat in the garden.
Sat in the dark as well.
Yeah,
I need a little torch under my chin. What was that program now? Are You Afraid of the Dark? Where they used to have to tell scary stories. Basically, imagine that. I might nick the theme tune to that. Actually.
How did it go?
I can't remember exactly, but I remember it pretty iconic at the time.
Okay.
I might just use bits of that anyway. There we go.
I see.
Does that look creepy or?
Wow.
Just looks stupid. We'll turn that off. So, this week's story. So this happened to someone, a friend of mine knew, named Scott. So there we go. That's the start.
Oh my god, is this real?
Well, I'll continue reading it and find out. So Scott had been out of town for a few days. He was driving back home to Worcester as night deepened and rain began to fall. Fatigue set in, and the road stretched out before him, empty and shrouded in darkness, forcing him to strain his eyes as he navigated through a dense, foreboding forest. Suddenly his headlights flickered over something white on the side of the road. As he slowed down, Scott realised it was a young girl in a pale dress, standing just before the reach of the shadow. Sorry. So I used a popular AI tool to spruce up this story because it was very, very plain when I first did it. And it's gone a bit overboard, let's be frank. Right.
Just read it as it is.
Okay. She wasn't signalling for a ride, but Scott felt compelled to stop. He rolled down his windows and asked if she needed a lift. She replied softly, a voice barely audible over the whisper of the rain. She lived in a town. He would pass through on his route. The girl climbed into the back seat, presence unsettling yet ethereal. This has gone too far.
You're spoiling it. Come on.
Like a whisper fog.
Like a what?
Like a whisper fog.
I thought you said the other F word then. I was like, blooming hell.
Yeah, it's actually Nelson Moods. It's a very different topic on this one. She said she was tired and asked if she could close her eyes for a bit. Seeing she looked cold, he offered her his jacket, which she accepted with a grateful smile. An hour later, Scott pulled up at the address she had given him, turning around to let her know that he'd arrived. He was startled to find that the back seat was empty. The girl had vanished, along with his jacket. Confused and unnerved, Scott knew he hadn't stopped the car since she got in. How could she have simply disappeared? His heart pounding, Scott sat in the car, grappling with his confusion and fear. He decided to approach the house to see if its occupants could explain the mysterious encounter. Walking up the overgrown path, he rang the doorbell, his mind racing with uncertainty. An elderly woman answered the door, her eyes clouded with sorrow and understanding. As Scott recounted his strange experience, his story sounded less believable with each word, yet the old woman seemed neither surprised nor sceptical, only deeply saddened. "Wait here a moment," she said before disappearing into the dimly lit house. Left on the doorstep, Scott felt a growing sense of dread. He regretted his decision to ring the doorbell, fearing what revelation might come next. The woman returned, holding a framed photograph. Scott's heart skipped a beat as he recognised the girl he had picked up. "This was my daughter," the woman said, her voice trembling. 5 years ago, she died in a car crash near where you found her. She must have been trying to come home." Scott was stunned. An icy chill ran down his spine. Mumbling his condolences, he stumbled back to his car, his mind a whirlwind of disbelief and fear. It was only later, when he got home, that he remembered the jacket he had lent to the girl, now lost to the night. The next morning, dawned bright and clear, and the terror of the previous night diminished, but not forgotten. Mustering his courage, Scott decided to visit the library to verify the old woman's story. He combed through old newspapers until he found both the accident report and the young girl's obituary. Every detail was true. On his way back, Scott passed by the cemetery mentioned in the article, where the girl was buried. Drawn by a morbid curiosity, he stopped and searched for a grave. As he approached, his breath caught in his throat. Draped over the cold, weathered headstone was his jacket, swaying gently in the morning breeze. That is the story of the vanishing hitchhiker. What do they say now at the end of? I'm trying to think of what the hell was that program I mentioned at the beginning? Are you afraid of the dark? Yeah. So there you go. That's my little ghost story.
Tune in next week for riveting follow up to that.
Yeah. Have you got any ideas for ghost stories or any ones that you've heard? Well, we'll find out.
Put me on the spot, why don't you?
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, you'll find out next week. You better come back, otherwise you'll miss it.
Ooh. No, I'm not doing that.
Thanks for listening. We love to hear what you think, and if you'd like to keep up to date with when new episodes of the podcast are released, you can follow us on our Instagram and our Facebook profile. Just search Haunting Button House. You can also get in touch via email at hauntingbuttonhouse@outlook.com.